So now that we have a cut of our scene all put together, we already know that there are some issues that we have to try to resolve. We noticed that as we were cutting things together, we actually duplicated one of the lines, and although it kind of works as a bit of a dad repeating himself sort of thing, we definitely want to take a careful look at that and see if we can find something a little bit smoother. At the same time, the scene is heavily leaned towards the dad's coverage. All of these yellow shots here are shots of the dad, while all of the blue shots in here are shots of Tom. And this movie really is about Tom's emotional journey, so we want to try and figure out how to get more of Tom in there and balance the scene out for Tom's emotional story. This is one of the reasons why it's so helpful to color code your shots according to character. So let's begin by adjusting this scene right from the very top. Let's look at this very first shot and how it cuts into the next shot in the scene. So there's some noticeable dead air in here between the time that Tom jumps up on the porch and when Tom actually enters the house. Maybe we can actually trim out a ton of that space and make this feel a little bit faster paced. So Tom jumps up on the porch and begins to exit frame, and the camera kind of drifts off to nowhere. Maybe we want to lose some of that camera drift and just let Tom get up onto the porch here. We'll make an in point right there. And then we're going to come back into this shot and find as Tom enters. Now, right here is where that door begins to open. And we could probably begin this shot just moments before that, like right here. And we'll just cut out this section right here. Now I'm going to play this back, and we'll see what the difference is. It's pretty good now, but we are missing a little bit of that sound design. Fortunately, it's all a part of this blue shot right here. So what I can do is I can grab the audio and drag it out underneath some of the shot of Tom jumping up on the porch. And looking at my waveforms, I can see that the door opens right here. Now, even though technically Tom is not yet at the door, this sort of time jump might work perfectly for us. Let's listen to it. And it kind of works nicely. Now, as Tom walks in and enters the house, there is a shot that I know that we have that we're not currently utilizing. Let's open up our line breakdown again and go to the beginning. You can see in this moment, which is this group of shots right here, that there are these 3 pink shots. Now, we haven't even used one of these yet, so let's figure out if one of these is actually going to work for our purposes. Zach, actually. And right there, we can see that there's a bit of a point of view of Tom's character approaching his father. This makes the father a little bit more menacing at the beginning of the scene, and we don't yet know his motivations for sitting there at the table. This could be a nice thing to cut into our scene on top of some of the existing audio that's already in place. I'm going to make an in point and find a nice point to get out of his point of view. Zach, actually. So right before he enters frame, as the camera comes to a bit of a stop. So like right here. I'm going to head back to my timeline, and I'm going to point my video up to the second track here. I'm going to disable all of my audio, and I'm going to cut this perspective shot into my timeline above my existing footage. Just like that. So this piece of video will play, while this one does not in this moment. Let's just see how this looks when we play it back. And I kind of like that. I like coming back to Tom's reaction here as he's looking, but this might be just a little bit too long. Let's try to finesse this and make it work a little bit better. So I think part of the problem is that we see Tom look at his dad right here. But we allow him to take a couple of steps too far and look down at his feet before cutting to this shot. So possibly this shot needs to happen a little bit sooner. Maybe right here on Tom's look. I'm going to just drag it into place. And we'll check it out now. That's not too bad, but I did like how when we returned to this shot of Tom, he was a little bit closer. Kind of like right here. So I'm going to remove some of the shot of Tom. And it might even make some sense to have this noise of the door closing happening a little bit sooner once we cut to the point of view shot. So I'm going to take this audio of the door closing and just try to move it up a little bit. And that's working a lot better now. Now, I feel like this shot works really good, so I'm going to move it down to my first video track to commit it to my actual edit. Even though it was visible, when I move it down to my first video track, it tells me that this shot is no longer just kind of hanging out as a potential attempt or a placeholder, that it is a living part of my actual edit here. Let's move forward into our scene and see what else we can make adjustments to.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
So we can definitely tighten up this section here. We might need to use less of the dad's reaction after his line and get a little more of it before his line. And I'm just going to slip it in place. And we'll see how that plays.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
I might even say we need to slip it a little bit more.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
That's pretty good now. And now maybe we need a little bit less of Tom sitting down. So we can begin right about here as he's in the middle of sitting. This should make this entire section flow a little bit better.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
Now, something that might actually help us out here is if the audio from either this shot of Tom walking or this shot of Tom walking continues without any of the dad's dialogue, so that we can retain some of the natural footsteps that Tom has. That sort of empty sound that we hear on the dad's coverage is because the actor wasn't doing any actual walking in this shot. And so we don't really feel like Tom continues the movement from back here to up here. Let's go ahead and try to bring in some of those additional footsteps by simply taking the audio, moving it down, and trying to grab more of it. Let's listen to that now.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room.
Now, we could go ahead and add some additional sound effects later on, like the sliding of a chair or louder footsteps to really cement this in, but this helps us out just a little bit in refining the scene to get it to sound and work a little bit better and make more sense. Those sort of finite adjustments are things we can do later on as we get into more granular details. Let's continue through the next shot here.
We talked about this.
So we can help these performances along. They're really good, but there's something about it that doesn't feel necessarily true. For example, the dad is clearly got his eye on Tom and knows that Tom is up to something, but it takes him a long time to respond once Tom sits down. And, I mean, look at that attitude, you know? So I think the dad would probably have more of a response to Tom sooner. Let's go ahead and get the dad to react a little bit more quickly. And maybe we'll get out of Tom's shot a little bit sooner so that the dad's reaction is a little more immediate. Let's play this back and check it out now.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra.
And right away, that's a lot better. We could even go ahead and keep some of Tom's reaction from this shot on top of the dad's dialogue here to cement home what's going on in Tom's mind as he's hearing some of the beginning lines of the scene. I'm just going to extend some of Tom's shot here. You can see him kind of nod his head there. That might really help bring the characters together in the beginning.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this.
And what we could even do here is cut out some of this space that's left over right here and try to get the dad to speak even sooner and give Tom's reaction a little bit more weight. So I'm going to go ahead and grab everything and just move it back a little bit to right about here. And then we'll bring in some of Tom's reaction again to right about where it was. And let's see if that closer dialogue from the dad makes a little bit more sense now.
I left a suitcase out for you in your room. We talked about this. This is what's happening.
Yeah, it's a lot better now. So we can actually feel like the dad is sort of interacting with Tom the entire time here, and Tom is immediately reacting to what the dad is saying, even though we've messed with the timing of it between the two different shots. Let's see if we can do something very similar to the rest of the scene. We want to try to balance more shots of Tom into this moment to give Tom's emotional journey a little bit more prominence, while at the same time making sure that we've really kept an eye on all of the performances to make sure that they match up from shot to shot. Let's see if we can make sure that what the dad says here lines up nicely to the performance that Tom is giving here.
This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
I love that horse.
So we can adjust a couple of different things. The first is that when Tom sits down, we can tell that he really wants to say something, but the dad has to get his words in first. So Tom is just waiting to say something. Maybe Tom needs to be really hot to trot to make a comment back to his dad and react much sooner. By cutting out this beginning chunk of his shot, and then extending a little bit of his shot on top of the end of the dad's dialogue, we'll feel like Tom is wanting to cut his dad off without actually cutting him off.
We talked about this. This is what's happening.
But I don't understand why they won't take Myra. It doesn't make sense.
Now you can see here that the dad in this piece of coverage actually leans backwards as if he's about to do some of his dialogue, but that's not really matching up well to this piece of coverage. And I'm really quite fond of this take of him.
I love that horse. As much as you do.
So I don't necessarily want to change out this entire take to accommodate this movement. So what we could do is either remove the end of this shot before he moves backwards, or see if we can drag in just a little bit more of the beginning of this shot. He's got kind of a nice reaction there. And let that play out.
It doesn't make sense.
I love that horse. As much as you do. But Myra is just a horse.
I'm not going if she can't come with us.
Tom!
So let's stop here and take a quick break. If you're following along as we go, this will give you a chance to catch up to where we are. At the end of this multi-part section, we'll be assigning your official homework. Feel free to edit up to where we are now, or continue into the next part and do all your editing at the end. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to continue refining the kitchen table scene, part 2.